Hey everybody, thanks for checking us out here on the Fuchsia's Throwback Thursday. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers G1 Pretender Grimlock by Hasbro. This figure came out at the tail end of the 1980s, the glory years of the Transformers, but unfortunately this is not my original figure. I got this figure off eBay a few weeks ago because I was curious about the Pretenders. I missed the Pretenders originally. My own G1 years spanned from about 1984 to the tail end of 86, the beginning of 1987. So I totally missed the boat with the Pretenders. So I was curious about them. So I picked up Grimlock here, and I also picked up Skullgrin and a couple others just because I was curious about them and wanted to take them for, a test drive. And they're pretty cool. It's an interesting take on the entire Transformers concept because rather than just transforming into a car, a plane, Tyrannosaurus Rex, or what have you, they've adopted these humanoid shells that help them blend in the world a little bit better. As much as a slightly overweight 40-year-old in red, white, and blue samurai armor can blend, but I guess it worked for them at the time. And it looks like he has some kind of rocket pack on his back too, so maybe this version of Grimlock flew around the world as some kind of superhero. I don't know. But let's get a close-up of his face so you get an idea of what we're looking at here. Okay, so I mean, it's not a bad looking figure. It's just, it is kind of trippy to kind of look at this and think this is Grimlock because it's so outside of what we normally perceive as Grimlock. But there are elements to this figure that have endured over the years and keep kind of popping up. You'll notice that there is kind of a samurai element to what we're looking at here. And in the new Transformers movie, where Grimlock also kind of looks like a samurai. Now there are some similarities in their design here. If you look at their helmets, I mean, they're not exactly the same or anything, but there are some parallels to be drawn. And the armor around their waist is very similar. So there are some elements from this version of Grimlock that carried over to the newest version of Grimlock, and I think that's kind of cool. And the 2006 Transformers Classics Grimlock also had some elements from this Pretender Grimlock in its design. So this Grimlock does keep popping up again and again in certain subtle ways, and I think that's kind of cool. So let's see, for accessories, he comes with a blaster / sword thing here that he can hold in his hand. And then there's also this piece that becomes the tail of his T-Rex mode when the inner robot transforms, but he can also hold on to that in this mode as another blaster, so you can kind of double fist the firepower. Now, in pure action figure standards, there isn't a lot to this figure. His legs don't move or anything. He can't turn his head. All you can really do is raise and lower his arms. And that's about it. That's about all you can do with this version of Grimlock in this particular mode. But to transform him to the Grimlock we're a little bit more familiar with, it is pretty simple. All we really have to do is take off his helmet, and then when we do that, you can kind of see some paint rub here. This is definitely an older figure that has seen its fair share of play. But to continue with the transformation, we just pop that shell open, and presto, there is Grimlock in a form that we're a little bit more familiar with. And this is definitely a smaller figure. This Grimlock is tiny, but it's still kind of neat, and he definitely looks like the Grimlock that we all know. Now, there's not a lot of articulation here either. His arms raise and lower, and his knees bend, but that's it. That's all you get out of this Grimlock. There's no elbow joints. His head doesn't even really turn or anything. That's basically all we're going to get out of him. And then that blaster that the Pretender shell was holding can be placed in his hand like that, and that's basically his weapon. Now, this Grimlock is pretty tiny once again. For some sense of scale, we can put him with the new generation's Tanker, who himself is a pretty small figure, and he absolutely dwarfs Grimlock. But what's kind of cool about that is that Tankor should be a large character, especially if you're going by his Beast Machines appearances. So this pairing kind of works. I like the way those two look together, even though they never really appeared in any fiction together. That works. And then we can also, let's move him back a little bit. The recently released Legends Optimus Prime kind of works almost sort of well with this Grimlock. Grimlock should be larger than Optimus, so it's not the greatest match, but it's not too bad. It's kind of close. So again, he is pretty small. And then this Grimlock does transform into a T-Rex. And to do that, we just remove the weapon, move his legs back, bring his head up a little bit, if it'll stay, flip his legs around to form the upper body of the T-Rex, move the head down, and then that blaster attaches to his robot head, and that's basically it. We've got Grimlock's T-Rex mode. And again, still quite small. He didn't get any bigger since turning into a T-Rex. Maybe this Optimus can ride this version of him like he's been doing in the trailers for the new movie. And you can see that there's, the stickers here aren't in the best shape. They are pretty worn. This Grimlock has seen its fair share of play. But as far as a Grimlock figure, a vintage Grimlock figure that's not the G1 figure goes, this is a pretty cool take on it. I like that he's so versatile and there's so many aspects to this Pretender figure. And then to get him back in the Pretender shell, we've just got to transform him back to his robot mode. And that is fairly simple. You just flip the legs over, maybe move those arms up a little bit, fold the head back, and then flip his arms down. And presto, he's a robot again. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's get a close-up on that face. If we can here. Yeah, there's not a lot of detail there. It's just kind of like this orange blob back against the black helmet. I mean, it sort of looks like Grimlock, but it also sort of doesn't. But good enough for our purposes. So let's get him back in his shell. We take the back half of the shell, and we can kind of see where the dinosaur head kind of lays. It kind of helps hold him in place. Just like that. I mean, it's not a secure fit or anything, but it kind of works. And then there's all these posts and tabs, pegs, that indicate where the two halves kind of fit together. And there's not a lot to it. We just put them together. Well, usually it's easier than this. Something is preventing it. Grimlock's being difficult. Okay, and there we have Grimlock back in his Pretender shell with his helmet back in place. So this is definitely an interesting, unique take on the character. I've been curious about it for years, and I'm glad I finally decided to give it a try because I do like it. I'm interested in a few more of the Pretenders figures too, so maybe I'll spend some time tracking those down. But in honor of the new movie opening tomorrow, I thought it would be cool to take a look at this guy. So thanks for joining us here on the Fuchsia's Throwback Thursday, and we will see you next time.